Hello and welcome back to Breathe Motivation. My name is Anthony Hester. I'm the host and founder of Breathe Motivation. So glad you guys could join us today. I hope you guys are having a great day. So let's recap yesterday. So yesterday we talked about pushing through difficult times. Now, there are going to be times that you are going to be challenged and things are going to look very tough for you. But I want you guys to know and really understand that you guys can get through anything that you put your mind through. Right? We've got to be focused on finding a solution to problems in difficult times, because if we're focused on a solution versus the problem, guess what? We're going to make it through it quicker. So we've got to understand that and know that we can make it through it, and just be positive and focus on positives, because when you focus on positives, negatives start to kind of take a back seat. So it's important to understand that. So today we are going to talk about, relationships. How to really improve relationships and how to create great relationships from the beginning. So let's start off with the definition. So the definition for today is to teach. So it's to show or explain to someone how to do something. So when we enter into relationships, many of us are deciding and we kind of test each other, right? A relationship is a mutual kind of, I would say maybe kind of like a mutual agreement that we are, we're friends, we have a good time together, and we decide really how and what, I'm going to bring to the relationship and what others are going to bring to the relationship, right? That's kind of the test that we have. So we've got to also understand that when we create these relationships, as they go along, throughout the, weeks, months, years, however long those relationships last, you've got to be able to understand that how you allow others to treat you is how they will treat you. And that's how friendships end up working or relationships end up working. So I always want to challenge myself. And I went through some pretty, I wouldn't say crazy scenarios, but when I was younger in my earlier 20s, and even in my late teens, so 18, 19, 20, as you're going through, kind of really getting into adulthood, I didn't have the greatest friends. I had people that were cool and we had a good time, but it was more just, doing young 20-year-old things. None of us really brought anything better to the table, or I always felt like I brought more to the table because I had a good job. I had a steady job. I was making, I think it was like $45,000 to $50,000 a year at, 19 years old. And that was more than most of my friends, were making, right? Or who I thought were my friends. When you look at those situations. Now, I did have some good friends. I had some friends that, my best friend Caleb, I still talk to him, and we had a great time and we kept in touch, and we always brought something back to the relationship. We are always making sure that we're focused on encouraging each other, and we always push each other through. And still to this day, we do that. And that's what makes our relationship work and our friendship work, is that we are always focused on, one, we know each other's past, we know our experiences, but we support each other and we encourage each other to get better. And we like to listen to each other and understand that, right? So that's what happens is when you have these great relationships, those great relationships, really create better environments for both of you. Right? And it's the same thing in all relationships. So we got to understand, if we are in a bad relationship or a bad friendship, we got to understand that we're allowing that. Now, there were times where I was so afraid to just kind of, these friends that were just kind of living off of me. They were, stayed at my apartment every weekend. We'd go out, we'd party, we'd drink, and I was paying for it, right? So of course they're going to stay around because I was allowing that to happen. I wasn't gaining anything. Great. It was cool. We had a good time, but it wasn't anything really meaningful at the time. So you got to understand, there's meaningful relationships. Also with those friendships, sometimes they're a lesson, right? So you're going to learn a lesson of the people that you should have around you and who you shouldn't have around you, but you've got to be able to decide what that is, and you've got to learn the lesson, right? The one of the biggest and toughest things that most people have is a fear of confrontation. I didn't want to, have a confrontation or to make somebody feel like, they weren't good enough or they weren't nice enough, because I didn't feel good enough or nice enough. So why would I have great friends that are going to encourage me to be better? I didn't have that belief in myself. So you've got to look at yourself and understand what you deserve. So a lot of times in your relationships and your friendships, you teach people what you deserve and, the respect that they should give to you. And that's where you got to be able to create boundaries. So when you have these great boundaries, so I had an instance the other day when somebody kind of made a smart remark to me, and I was like, "Wow, really? Like, what do you mean?" And I kind of challenged that thought, and then that person was like, "Oh, well, that was kind of rude, wasn't it?" I was like, "Yeah, it was." So they ended up apologizing, and of course, hey, great, you recognize that, and that's the boundary I'm going to have. Like, that's not a comfortable thing to be saying to somebody, or you shouldn't say that to somebody. And I'm not going to let you say that to me, right? So you've got to understand that, those little things, you teach people how you treat, how they treat you. And, sometimes you got to just stand up and kind of, stand up for yourself and stand up for your relationship, right? And I have no problem with anybody saying something crazy and then you say something, or I probably have made some mistakes and said some things that I probably didn't mean, but a lot of times when you have a great relationship with that person, you can have those, tough conversations. So that's probably something we'll talk about later on this week, is just tough conversations, or, confronting, or critical conversations. So we'll talk about that a little bit later this week. So, but you got to understand that. So I wanted to bring up something as far as relationships and friendships. There are some key things that I think will help your relationships to get better. So here's what I've done over the last several years to really, increase the greatness of my relationships with my friends, my family, and, my wife, because that's important. I've got a relationship with her. We got to be able to be in tune with each other as well. So one of the biggest things that I've noticed, as far as friendships go, when I look at friendships and I look at the relationships that I've had, a lot of people are always quick to point out your negatives. So you've got to be willing to understand that, hey, maybe this person feels a certain way, and maybe kind of reflect if that is you. And if it is you, great, you can change. And if it isn't you, then maybe you can kind of change or influence them to understand where you're coming from. So one thing, just an example, a lot of friends will tell you, oh, well, you never keep in touch. Well, I always tell people, well, the nice thing about, our phones and, getting in touch with each other is that we all have open dialogue, right? We all have cell phones now, so we are all available, right? So if you're not keeping in touch and I'm not keeping in touch, well, that's both our bads, right? But if I contact you and then you don't contact me back, how are you going to tell me I don't keep in touch with you, right? So that's a big thing that we've got to understand in our relationships, is we've got to keep in touch. When you have friends, you have, family, and, whoever you're in a relationship with, coworkers, all that stuff, it's great to be in, communication. It was great. I got a call from one of my old coworkers, and just to call in and check on me and see how I was doing, see how life's going. And we got a great conversation, and we're like, okay, cool. Let's keep in more touch. Right. And it was somebody I was like, oh, I don't, it was cool to, hear from them. And that's a big thing. And that's a great thing for relationships, is you got to be able to communicate. If you don't communicate, it's very hard to maintain a relationship, right? So keep in touch, give people a call, on their birthdays, on special days, their anniversaries. You can really find any of this stuff on Facebook or anything like that. So, instead of just writing up a message, I like to call people and say, hey, happy birthday. Or if I don't get an opportunity, great, we'll talk at some point later on that week, or whatever, however that looks like, right? But anytime there's greatness going on or somebody gets promoted, I like to call those people. So I think it's important for us to really come from behind our screens of our phones and, contact people in person, or, go see people in person. I think that's a great thing. So next, that'll lead into this quality time. Are you spending quality time with your friends? So, there was a couple weekends ago, I went to a Texas A&M football game, and I almost, my best friend Chase invited me, and I was like, man, I don't know if I want to go, but I was like, you know what? I haven't spent a lot of quality time with Chase, and, I don't want to blow him off, so I almost thought about doing it because I was so tired and whatever. But, I ended up going because I was like, you know what? This is a great quality time that I'm going to be able to spend with my best friend. We're driving for a couple of hours. We talked about all kinds of stuff. We talked about life. We talked about, work and all this stuff, and it was really great. So we got a great time to really spend some quality time with each other. And sometimes we don't get that much time because our schedules are so off, and it's good to understand that. So I would tell you, sometimes you've got to be able to push yourself to create that quality time, because we so easily sometimes just say, oh man, I'm really tired. So I've had to I really push myself to make time for people, so that we can have great relationships. So understand that if people are making time, then you should be able to make time as well. Next, you get back what you put in. I think that's a big key to great relationships. A lot of the times, if it's a one-sided relationship or I'm the only person contacting somebody, guess what? I'm probably not going to contact you very much from here on out, because at that point, it's a relationship. It's 100%. We have to be 100% in our relationship, and if we're not, then it's not fair for me to keep reaching out to people. So, I used to be like, oh man. These people aren't talking to me. And every once in a while, guess what? We ended up ever talking again. And it was okay because, sometimes people are in your life for, just some kind of reason. You guys brought some value to each other and you were able to really help each other out. And then sometimes it just goes away, right? Your friendship was good. Things were good. And then it just kind of fizzles. So it's good to understand that. And then a lot of times you're not wasting a lot of time by trying to focus on maintaining a relationship that wasn't really built to be there for a lifetime. So next, open up. I think that's a big important piece of this is opening up to your friends. Thank them for things. Be grateful for them. Let them know how much you enjoy time with them. People love hearing that. And, I love to tell, I look at my friendships and my closest friendships. I look at them like family, right? We might not be blood, but you guys are family and I love you guys. And it might sound crazy that, we say that. And I used to think it was really weird myself. And, there's times where I hang out with my best friends and, I'm like, hey man, I love you. I hope everything's going well for you, right? And it's okay to do that. Love is a good thing. And if you feel that for people, let them know, because I'm sure they feel the same thing. I look at some of my, I look at my best friend Caleb like a brother, right? He's somebody, obviously he's not my brother, but, he's somebody I can depend on. We can talk about things. We can, we understand each other. It's a great thing. So be open to telling people how much they mean to you and enjoy them, because you never know how long that friend's going to be there, that relationship's going to be there. It's always so good to be open to that. Next, listen, to what people have to say. Sometimes, one of the questions I always ask is, do you want my opinion on this, or do you just want me to listen? Because I think sometimes in relationships, people just want to vent and they don't want to hear anything back from you. They just want to hear or just let go and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Here's this. I don't need an answer to it. I feel like I already have an answer, but I just want you to listen. And I just want you to, understand where I'm at in my life and understand that, right? So be open to listening and then sharing. And if people want your opinion, I always ask that question. You want my opinion on this, or you just want me to shut up and listen, right? It keeps that open for you. So you've got to understand that too. And then just also the next thing to keeping a great relationship is fight getting too comfortable. Sometimes I think we start to take people for granted, and then we don't talk to them as much, and we don't focus on them as much, and then we start to leave them out, and that doesn't create any good thing. So, stop the complacency with your friendships. Fight for the relationships you have. If you want great relationships, you've got to fight for them, right? And you've got to be able to not be so comfortable, right? Like, oh, well, hey, they're my good friend. They'll understand, hey, I'm going to blow them off and they'll understand. That was something that I thought in my mind was, man, I can't blow them off. Like, this is a great opportunity for us to hang out, right? So you got to be able to fight getting too comfortable, because eventually if you're not there or you're not supportive or it's one-sided, guess what? That relationship is probably going to end, and you'll be the one that's the most hurt out of it if you're the one that's getting too comfortable. So let me leave you with this quote. A good relationship is when someone accepts your past, supports your present, and encourages your future. So remember that you guys decide how people treat you and treat the relationship. So decide what you want, decide with respect and dignity for yourself, and understand that you deserve what you want and the relationships that you want as well. So check out our website, breathemotivation.com. It's got our blog. It's got this podcast on there. I'm going to have some great opportunities, and I'm also really excited. So next week, I had an interview with Wesley Chapman. I don't know if you guys have seen him, but if you haven't, Google him. This guy is amazing. So next Wednesday, I'm going to launch a interview. So it's going to be longer than the normal show of the 10 to 15 minutes, but I will launch that as like a separate episode, kind of like a bonus episode. So get ready for that. I think it's going to be a great thing. So I'm going to start having a couple of interviews, maybe a month, and have these with people that just are great and bring greatness to you guys, and I think will bring value to this podcast. So I hope you guys will enjoy that. And as always, remember to breathe motivation and exhale success. I will see you guys tomorrow on Wednesday. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks.